What is going on, my good people? Appreciate y'all for tuning in. Appreciate y'all for stopping by to ramble about the video games here today on this edition, on this episode of the Ramble Report. We got some good shit to jump into. We got a 10-step plan for how we're going to fix the future of Xbox. We got some guilty pleasure games to talk about, and these are questions that came in from Patreon supporters, YouTube members, and if you want to submit your questions to be read, to be answered on the show, head on over to Patreon, or all the links will be in the description. The YouTube membership, the Patreon link, all of that will be in the description, and you can get your question read on the show each and every single week. So yeah, I love the Q&A bit of this show. It's easily my favorite part of the Ramble Report. It's the thing I look forward to the most every week. So appreciate everybody for submitting questions, and also appreciate Vin, Captain Corndog, and Sadik for supporting the channel at that shout out tier on Patreon or through the YouTube membership side of things. Thank y'all so very much. But let's go ahead and jump into the show. I'm going to try to cut these shows down a little bit, make them about an hour and 30 minutes, see if that's a little bit more easily digestible for people, but still got a lot to ramble about here today. So how about we jump into our first question, and this is in regards to the future of Xbox. So this is coming to us from Dan Mall over on Patreon, and the question reads as follows: my 10-step plan to fix Xbox for good. Number 1, ABK games officially released simultaneously on all platforms. Non-ABK games, like other first-party studios outside of ABK, they release on Xbox and PC only. Some games may be ported to other systems after a 3-year period. So going through and trying to figure out how to fix Xbox, and specifically let's think about the console of Xbox. Like, the publishing side of Xbox right now is doing better than ever, but the console is in need of saving, without a doubt. It's looking very, very grim. So we're really focusing on the console side of things with this question, which Xbox, like, that is inherently, you have box in the name, that's a console. So let's go beat by beat through this process, through the 10-step equation here. And so the first one being ABK games officially released simultaneously on all platforms, and then other first parties outside of ABK release only on Xbox and PC, and some games may be ported to other systems after a 3-year period. Yeah, like, that's, if you want to sell consoles, you have to have exclusive games. It's a no-brainer. I will not be buying the next Xbox if there are no exclusive games. I would not have bought a Nintendo Switch 2 if I could just play Donkey Kong on a Steam Deck or on a PlayStation. It makes absolutely no sense to be in the hardware business unless you have exclusive software. It's just nonsensical. I mean, other than, like, if you're Asus and you're selling these crazy high priced things, and the only way you're making money whatsoever is just significant prices on the hardware because you can't sell software because you have no software to sell. And that's why, like, Steam Deck prices are so reasonable. But anywho, without a doubt, I think you have to have exclusive games if you want to have anybody interested in your hardware whatsoever. Like, I do not think this next Xbox, unless they massively pivot and change strategy and are like, hey, Elder Scrolls 6 is coming only to Xbox. Like, if that's the plan for next generation, then yes, you're going to sell Xboxes. And if that's not the plan, then no, you're probably not going to sell Xboxes. And I don't think that's the plan. I think they are definitely pivoting away from exclusive software, and they'll be a great publisher for doing so. And that's the tough part. They're caught in a crossroads between, do you want to be the biggest publisher in the world, or do you want to be the biggest console manufacturer in the world? And either which way, like, you can make a fuck ton of money. So it's like, all of PlayStation, or all of Sony's money, not all, but a lot of Sony's money comes from the PlayStation console. And the PlayStation console is so tantalizing because you gotta own it to play The Last of Us and to play God of War. And sure, they come to PC a few years later, whatever, but like, even to this question here from Dan Mall of saying some games, like, they release on Xbox and PC simultaneously. Like, I wouldn't do that. I would pivot away from that. But at this point, the next Xbox is going to be a PC. So, of course, it's obviously going to come to Xbox and PC day and date. But I wouldn't put my games on other platforms. I wouldn't put my games on PC. I like Nintendo's strategy. You know, if you want to be in the hardware business, then be in the hardware business with the best exclusive software you can possibly make to get people interested in your ecosystem. It's just, yeah, I think that's kind of obvious. But, so yeah, I agree that they definitely need to have exclusive video games if they're going to sell that next Xbox. And if there are no high profile exclusive games for that next Xbox, then it's not going to sell whatsoever. So we'll see. The second question here is, or the second proposition here for how to save Xbox is Game Pass commits to one single tier and keeping its price at $10 a month for 3 years. Goal is 100 million users within that time frame, thus generating $12 billion a year in revenue. Fortnite Crew, Ubisoft Classics, EA Play, and Call of Duty are all removed from the service. If 100 million users isn't reached in 3 years, price is subject to revision. Price is the same across Xbox and PC. Streaming is tied to the subscription. So, I think for their next console, they're definitely going to have to settle on like a one-and-all price for Game Pass. Like, they're going to have to figure out what that price is going to be and just stick to it, because the next Xbox is going to be a PC. So, or from the rumors, the leaks, it seems like that hybrid console is going to be, by and large, a PC. So, is it going to be PC Game Pass price for everybody? Or is it going to be console Game Pass price for everybody? You get what I'm saying? Like, I don't really understand how they're even going to roll that out if the next Xbox is actually going to be just a PC. I would assume you just charge everybody PC Game Pass prices, but at that point it's like, okay, you're dropping the price back down another 50%, and it's they're a strange company, man. And I don't even, I think $10 a month, I think 15 is fine here. I think that service is worth $15 a month. You can just I think you could just lock it in at PC prices. What is that, $17 a month? I think that's fine. I think people were expecting a price increase over time, but it was just at the rate that price increase took place, 50% in one hit. That's just, that's you don't see that shit in subscription services that are healthy, sustainable. No subscription service that is sustainable is increasing their prices 50%. It's, of course not. You want to slowly bleed people. You don't want to fucking, go for the jugular and notice. You don't want people to notice they're bleeding. You want to slowly bleed them out over time. So yeah, I think that keeping it at PC Game Pass prices, that's totally reasonable. But it's just the thing of, what are they? Because if the proposition is $10 a month for 3 years, and the goal is 100 million users within that time frame, like, they did have it priced very fairly for such a long period of time. I mean, that was the whole joke, right? Where it's too good to be true, the best value in gaming, all of the phrases that were thrown out for years and years regarding Game Pass. But it didn't click. It didn't work. It never hit anywhere near the numbers that they were needing it to hit. And I don't know if just going back down to $9.99, because that's what it started off as, and it still didn't take off. And then if you're removing Call of Duty from it, because that was the whole point, where you buy Call of Duty, you put Call of Duty into the service, and you're thinking that this is going to be the thing that really sends a fucking significant spike in subscribers to this service, and it didn't happen. I obviously I love the strategy here of cutting the price to $10 a month for 3 years and locking that in to see if you can hit 100 million users, but I just don't know if you're ever going to be able to hit 100 million users. And I think that's the math that they ended up realizing was, oh fuck, we need to bleed people dry for this to become sustainable. And so we're going to charge who we have locked in significantly more. Because even if 20% of these users dip out, then hey, we increase the price 50%, so we're making 30% more money. You know what I'm saying? So it's a really shitty tactic, of course, but it was an unsustainable service, and they're trying to figure out the how to squeeze the most out of it as possible for the time being. And when Call of Duty didn't work, I think that was the moment where I was like, okay, yeah, it's never going to happen. This is never going to work. These services are never going to be, and they will be the future of gaming at some point. Like, I do believe that the future of gaming will be some subscription service model, and I think that's why it is wise for Xbox to stay invested with this model, with Game Pass, because they do have the absolute, without a doubt, the best subscription service in gaming by a mile. So it's wise to not just completely, like, I think the only reason they haven't completely just fucking disbanded Game Pass is because they know at some point, whenever the cloud infrastructure gets decent enough to where you can just run games on your TV, and you can just boot up Game Pass on your TV, PlayStation Plus on your TV, then it's going to be the subscription war. Then that's going to be the primary way that people play games, through some subscription service. But we're just not close to that point right now. But it's still like, yeah, it's wise to keep this service around. Like, if you are trying to be forward thinking, which I will give Xbox credit, they are always trying to be forward thinking, and oftentimes they're thinking far too ahead, and they forget the now and the present. And it's like, well, dude, you got to keep in mind that you need to be successful in the now as well as preparing for the future. And then it's like, well, we're not doing exclusive games anymore. It's like, well, dude, that's what works now. That's what works now to make a whole lot of fucking money, to get 100 million people into your ecosystem, and then you're getting 30% of every purchase that they make on your storefront. Like, that makes a lot of money. That makes a lot of fucking money. But it's like, they are very forward thinking, and I commend them for that, but you can think too far ahead. But I wonder, would there be some successful model? And I talk about this all the time, but like, could they invest in, because I think for Game Pass to work as it's currently constructed, before we get to the day where we're playing all our games through the cloud directly to our TV, for Game Pass to work as it's currently in the current landscape of video games, like, they would have had to significantly alter the way that people consume content in gaming. And I often think about something like an Indie Pass, something to that effect, where you're paying $7 a month and getting a bunch of just really small games. I don't think that's really, I mean, they're kind of doing that now as they're trying to get more and more day one titles on Game Pass, but it's for fucking $30, so nobody's going to play the majority of those indie games, unfortunately. But yeah, of course I agree 100% that a $10 a month charge, cutting that price down $20 a month would be wonderful. But yeah, I don't, the goal of hitting 100 million users, I think that's not, at this point, you just got to wait until we're streaming all of our games straight to a TV. I think that's the only time we'll see that type of growth in the subscription service model in with Game Pass or with PlayStation Plus or any of that shit. So the third goal here, the third bullet point, is committing to a full year of Game Pass allows users to buy a Microsoft published game at half price for a year, counting from release date. Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to do that, you could. I don't even think you would need to. I just think getting Call of Duty out of Game Pass, I think you immediately get like 50% closer to sustainable. I think that is like the one key thing. If you remove, like you said, you remove Fortnite Crew, EA Play, you remove all that junk, and then remove Call of Duty, and I think that Game Pass is immediately like much, much, much more sustainable. But it's also much less appealing to a lot of people. So, yeah, it's a weird spot to be in. But I think we're at the point now where we have to figure out how to just cut costs way, way, way back with Game Pass. And, just keep this thing afloat until we do get to that point where we're streaming all of our games from a TV. And the fourth point here is online play. The fee for online play is permanently removed. See, that's the interesting thing, where if the next console is going to be a PC essentially for Xbox, are they still going to try to charge for multiplayer? Because that would be the most easy thing to circumvent. That would be the most easy thing to navigate around, and people would just go and buy all their games on Steam and not have to deal with that's once again, it's the same situation we're talking about with PC Game Pass versus Xbox Game Pass, where I think you're just going to have to do multiplayer, online multiplayer all completely free, and you're going to have to do PC Game Pass being the standard for the charge that you're going to expect when you buy the next gen Xbox console hybrid PC thing. Because if it is just a PC, then you should be expecting to have access to online multiplayer for free. You should be expecting to get PC Game Pass prices. I think that you're going to have to remove the online play fee permanently. For sure. So yeah, I agree. Number 5, we have aggressive marketing campaigns to push Game Pass and Xbox as a brand worldwide, particularly in Europe, the Middle East, and expanding Asian markets. Plaster it everywhere. Yeah, this is important. I think China is massively, massively important to get games that are appealing to the Chinese market, to Africa, to, like you said, the Middle East. I think those markets are incredibly, incredibly important as they are blossoming, as they are getting much more into this space. I do also think, though, you need to kind of figure out what you are, because I think that's Xbox hasn't really had an identity since the 360 generation, where it was like the bro shooter box, the pretty much just the bro shooter box, but kind of the bro shooter box and the RPG box, where it's like, yeah, you're going to play Oblivion here, you're going to play Fable here, you're going to play Mass Effect here. They're exclusive to the 360 for a time period. And like, there was an identity established. Bro shooters, Halo, Gears, and then you had Forza on top of that. But there was an identity. And I think that there's an identity crisis right now where, with this whole idea of like everything is an Xbox, it's kind of like, well, nothing is an Xbox. And there's nothing you can really market to people to get them interested in this brand in terms of actually buying a console, because there's no key identifier that makes this console special. And it's the thing now where for the longest time, I could recommend people, go grab a Series S and get Game Pass. It's the cheapest way to play video games. And now it's like, no, it's not. You know what I mean? Like that's not true at all. So it's just tough to recommend an Xbox in any area for anything at this point. Um, but I think that trying to figure out what your identity is and maybe just recapturing the identity of the past, maybe that's the best move. Maybe the best move is just to go, yeah, you're going to get Gears here. You're going to get Halo here. They're going to be great. And then you're also going to get the Elder Scrolls 6 here. You're going to get Clockwork Revolution here. You're going to get the new Fable game here. You know, because they kind of are heading in that direction where Fable's coming out next year. Clockwork's coming out 2026, 2027. Halo Remake is on the way. Gears E-Day is on the way. So, like, it kind of would be a great time to reposition yourself, because imagine if you roll out the trailer for Elder Scrolls 6 at the next Xbox showcase, and then after that, it's a montage of all of the RPGs, your Clockworks and your Fables and your Elder Scrolls 6 and, these different titles. And it's like the Outer Worlds 2, obviously. And it's like, we're the home of the Western role-playing game. And I mean, you probably just put we're the home of the best RPGs in the world, or however you roll out that trailer. But that's at least an identity. When you have games of that ilk, Outer Worlds, Avowed, Clockwork, Elder Scrolls, Fable, when those are first party titles, I think you should be leaning into the fact that you are probably you're probably the best first party creator of role playing games on the planet right now, and nobody knows that. Like that's not, you don't even use that as a strength. You don't speak about that. You don't, because what is there to speak about? Outer Worlds 2 is coming to PlayStation day one. I guess Avowed is exclusive, but what's going to be the future of Fable? What's going to be the future of without a doubt, Elder Scrolls 6 is going to come to PlayStation, I guess probably PS6 day one. But if you do want to revive the Xbox console, that's a fucking great way to do it. If Clockwork is exclusive, if Outer Worlds 2 isn't going to be exclusive, but if those games were exclusive, Fable, Clockwork, Elder Scrolls 6, and be like, yeah, we're the home of the RPG. We make the best, biggest RPGs in the world with the most whatever, all the marketing terms you want to use, all the buzzwords. And you can only play them on this platform. Gears, Halo, you can only play them on this platform. I do understand that maybe there is just simply more money. Maybe they've gotten so large at this point in terms of their overall publishing outfit that there is just simply more money in them releasing games everywhere. And I think that's totally fine. If that's the pivot that they want to take, if that's the direction they want to go in, and they just want to release hardware, a very niche piece of hardware to, I don't know, 10, 15 million players, then cool. I think that's fine. It's going to suck, unfortunately, because that means it's going to come at a premium. We're going to have to pay significantly more for that hardware because they know it's going to sell to such a small audience base that they're not really going to be able to make up for those costs by selling software. So that would suck. But yeah, I can understand why they're becoming more and more of a publisher. There's a lot of money in that, especially with as big as they have gotten. So number 6 on the document here, ramp up production and slash prices of current generation consoles by 40% of their initial RRP. What does RRP stand for? Retail? What the fuck does that stand for? Recommended retail price. Embarrassing that I had to look that up. So, ramp up production and slash prices of current generation by 40% of their recommended retail price. Series S sold at $180, Series X at $300. Goal is not to make a profit on sales, but to increase console user base quickly, ideally before GTA 6 launches. Yeah, I I think I would just pivot to next gen entirely and let this thing die out. I don't know if it's possible to get people on board with this generation of Xbox. Like, I don't know if there's any salvaging, redeeming. I don't know, man. Maybe you could if you were selling these things at, like you said, $300 for a Series X, and it's just like by far the cheapest way to play Grand Theft Auto 6, and you get tens of millions of people who buy the console just for that one game. But I think there's just so much stink around this series of consoles that, because with the Xbox, with the original Xbox, they pretty much halted production on those, stopped selling those towards the last year of its life cycle to focus on the 360. And they, obviously that worked out very well for Xbox with the 360 generation. But this feels like there didn't, at least in my opinion, it didn't feel like there was that same level of stink around the original Xbox. Like, it's still, you had fucking Halo 1 and 2 on that thing. You had Knights of the Old Republic on that thing. Like, there were big games on that thing, and sure, it didn't sell gangbusters, but it did pretty well for an initial, like, that was the first Xbox, and it sold, 30 million units, something like that. I think it outsold the GameCube. I mean, that's outselling Nintendo, and that's not a terrible launch for the first system you've ever made. This just feels very different to me. But I do think at the same time they still need to kind of just as quickly as possible get away from this generation and but I don't know. That's back to the entire point. That's the tough thing about all of this, is that I don't think that they are trying to get away from, because it's not just the generation of technology. The technology's been great. The Series X technology is fantastic. It's a very powerful, great system. But it's just the overall console appeal. The appeal of that console is in the fucking toilet. And I don't know, it's more of a mindset problem. And if the mindset isn't shifting, then I don't really know if public perception is going to shift either. Like, if they still are primarily focused on being a third-party publisher, then it could just be that if they're the first to market with that open PC hybrid console thing, bringing the PC to the living room in the first real accessible plug-and-play system, PC sort of console, whatever the fuck you want to call it, if that hybrid machine is really the first to do that, if they beat Valve to the punch with the Steam Machine 2 or whatever, then that can be the exclusive selling point. But you have to have some exclusive selling point. If it's not going to be the games, then maybe it is going to be this open borders, able to emulate games, able to do whatever you want with this system, but it is still very plug and play friendly. Like, maybe that can be the thing that gets people in the door, but I just don't think anybody is really interested in Xbox Series consoles at this point. And I don't know if it's even possible to rehabilitate that image at this point. I think it would be just smarter to focus on the next thing. And because you're having to dig yourself out of such a marketing fucking hole that you at least do feel like with each generation there's a little bit of a fresh start of, okay, people have their $500, $600 ready to go, and they're going to now decide which of these systems to put that money towards. And each system has to make a case for why their system is the system to buy. And if Xbox can say, listen, this thing is a beast of a PC, And I think that actually gets into your next question. So let's dive into that. Next gen plans remain full console / PC hybrid with the same leaked specs. Project Magnus, as per Moore's Law, is dead, along with an actual Xbox handheld, subsidized the recommended retail price within reason to strengthen the user base. Yes. This I 1000% agree with. And I don't even think within reason. Subsidize the fuck out of this thing. If it's going to truly be your last effort in this space, if you were truly like throwing it, because how I look at this next Xbox is they are either offloading people into the PC ecosystem with this thing if it doesn't do well, or this thing does gangbusters and they, this is the future of their ecosystem and they end up having tremendous success being the first to market, and people get back on board with the brand, and it could be a massive PR win for them just by being the first to ever do something like this. And if they can do it correctly, I do think this alone could be an exclusive selling proposition that makes their system, their next gen system, more appealing than the others. I do believe that. However, you have to subsidize that price. You have to make this affordable for normal people. And if you are trying to do the Asus thing, if you're trying to become a niche hardware manufacturer and sell to a few million people, a couple million people, then no. It's going to be $1,500. It's going to be $1,200, and you're not going to take a loss on this thing at all. And it's like, once again, that's at least a future. That's at least an option. That way Xbox players can have some hardware choices in the future to continue supporting Xbox. But you're going to... you have 30 million people right now who chose to buy your system. That's a lot. That's a lot more than Steam Deck. That's a lot more than any Asus handheld, all Asus handhelds combined will ever sell. You got to think about that. You got to think about the fact that you have built up this brand identity that people, there are dozens and dozens of millions of people who want to support your console if you will give them something to support. So, but if it's $1,500, it's dead on arrival. I think if it's $1,000, it's dead on arrival. I say you throw one last Hail Mary. And sure, it's going to be more expensive than a PS6. I think we're all aware of that, and I think we could all accept that if it's going to be significantly more powerful, or just more powerful in general and more open. But $700, that's your price. I think when you start going, you got to remember, you got to sell this thing to normal fucking people if you want it to be a mass market product. And if you don't, that's fine. If you are okay with becoming, if you're okay with selling Steam Deck numbers and selling Asus ROG Ally numbers, then sure, bump the fuck out of that price up. But if you want to be Xbox, if you want to be what you once were, if you want people to look at that brand as they once did in terms of the actual console, then you got to keep that price normal. You got to keep that price affordable. Where if we're going into next generation and you're looking at the PlayStation 6 for, I don't know, $600, and then you're looking at this thing for $900, it's, you know what I mean? It's just not, it's dead on arrival. But if you're looking at the PlayStation 6 for $600, and then you're looking at this for $700, it's like, well, shit, I pay an extra $100 and I can emulate all of my old favorite games. I can just go into this thing, have a plug and play experience, but I can play fucking Freedom Fighters. I can play NFL 2K5. You know, games that are not available through backwards compatibility, like I can just play whatever I want from my my favorite classic games on this system. And all I got to do is pay an extra $100, and I can also run Steam, GOG, and I can do all of that shit. Yeah, I would probably be in. And if I'm saying that I would be in, then because I hate all that shit. Like I hate any sort of PC dealings whatsoever. I haven't talked about it yet because I want to have more hands-on time with it. But I bought a Steam Deck, and my main thought so far is like I see why people continue to support consoles. I see why there are 80 million fucking PlayStation 5 sold. I see why the Switch 2 is selling more in a couple months than the Steam Deck has in a few years. Like, I get it. You boot the thing up and it fucking works. It's wonderful. And if Xbox can do that and also have the appeal of the more open-ended side of PC gaming, and have your full Steam library right there supported, and have your full Epic library right there supported, like, that is very fucking appealing. Even to someone who hates PC gaming, like myself. But it's all going to come down to that price. Because you could have 0 exclusive games for that next Xbox. But if you price that thing at $700, I'll have to really consider that. You know, I'll have to really consider that. If the PS6 is $600, that's $700, and it has so many more bells and whistles and features and, you know, ways for me to play my all of my favorite classic games through emulation, like, that's very fucking appealing because it essentially becomes a fully backwards compatible device on not just Xbox systems, but all old Nintendo systems, all old PlayStation systems, all Sega fucking, you know what I mean? Like, that's a very, very appealing system at that point at the right price. So, yeah, So for the overall question, next gen plans remain full console / PC hybrid with the same leaked specs, you know, along with an actual Xbox handheld, and then you subsidize the RRP within reason. I say, yeah, subsidize the fuck out of it. Make it $700, take a loss on it, and then wave the white flag after. You know, throw a fucking Hail Mary and then wave the white flag after if it doesn't work. And then if it does work, it's like, well, great. You're back in business. Xbox is back fucking doing Xbox things. It's the 360 generation all over again. People are happy about the brand. People are happy about because there's this idea that Xbox is just, it can't win. And it's like, well, dude, Xbox was the de facto console for, 5 years straight from 05 to 2000 and really from like 05 to 2012. 2011, and then it shifted a little bit towards the end of that generation, but Xbox was the console. So things can change, man. People live in the now and forget that with the Wii U, pundits, critics were commonly saying that Nintendo should release their games on Xbox because they couldn't sell hardware anymore. Like, these were real conversations. Like, yeah, I think that those games would just be better if they were released on a PlayStation or an Xbox. No one wants to play the Wii U. No one wants to buy a Wii U to play these games. Things change quickly. So I wouldn't count out... listen, in terms of my belief, my overall belief in their leadership to get this right is 10% at best. I think it's a 10% chance at best that they get this right. But if they get this right, that's a big fucking win. So, let's see. Next up here we have... Did I miss something here? Okay, yeah. The next question we have here is Create a heavily curated inner studio division made up of actual gamers solely dedicated to quality control across all projects with a much tighter leash, frequent input, and feedback. I think they've already gotten quite a bit better with this. I think they've already gotten quite a bit better about just making sure that there are no red falls and there are no, or at least fewer of these red fall style scenarios slipping through the cracks. And I think they were in a really weird spot with Redfall, where it was already greenlit by Bethesda. Arcane felt pressure by Bethesda before Microsoft ever acquired them. And I don't want to sound like I'm giving Microsoft, Xbox, whatever, too much of a pass, because like they did release the game and they knew the game was going to suck. And so there's, of course, blame to be held there. But this was more a Bethesda thing. Bethesda greenlit this project, wanted Arcane to work on it, and then Microsoft buys Bethesda. They look at what the current lineup is for Bethesda's studios, and they see Arcane's working on this thing, and they're like actively in development a couple years deep, and they're like, well, fuck. We don't want to be the bad guys coming here and just can this thing. They were in a weird spot with that game. And I think that overall, the past few years, they have been much better about quality control, and they're releasing constant 8 out of 10s, 9 out of 10s. Now, sure, 100% I will grant you, you have to have a 10 out of 10. And they have not had that. That is true. They have not had a game of the generation. Like, I love Starfield, but most people don't consider that a game of the generation style contender. And you have to have one of those if you want to sell consoles. If you want to just be a publisher, then yep, Call of Duty and Candy Crush will take you to the promised land. But that's my big worry as well. Where do you just kill off all of your other smaller studios and even publishers potentially? You know, no, you don't kill off a Bethesda because they have Elder Scrolls and Fallout. But do you kill off all the studios who are not making Elder Scrolls, Fallout, COD, Candy Crush, Diablo, Overwatch? Because that's what publishers do. Console manufacturers can write off some of that shit and be like, yeah, well, we took a risk on, I don't know, say we took a risk on a single-player Blizzard third-person shooter that was exclusive for the Xbox, and it didn't make a ton of money, but we think it might have sold a couple million consoles. We got a couple million people in the door to buy an Xbox because of that one game. And like, you can do that weird mathematical equations that really don't make any sense whatsoever, but there's just different things you can point to on the overall directional sort of the board that you're building there of like, well, we did this to equal this, and we're not really expecting we don't necessarily expect a return on investment in terms of copies of this game sold, but we're hoping that it can sell a couple 100,000 Xboxes for the hardcore fans of The Evil Within 3. I don't think we'll ever see The Evil Within 3, unfortunately, but you get what I'm saying. Yeah, they do need a 10 out of 10 style, big blockbuster banger. Do I think they have that in them? Probably not. As it's currently constructed, like if we look at, Clockwork Revolution might be that. It might be, I think that could be like a top tier video game, but in terms of what they have on the way, like Gears of War E-Day, I think is going to be more Gears. I don't think it's going to do anything to reinvent the wheel or blow people away. I think that you could make an argument maybe that the Coalition should have worked on something else, but at the same time, I could see the argument being made of like, let's just get back to basics. Let's do a fucking good Gears game and get some kind of brand loyalty rebuilt back up, or get some of that old energy infused into this building right now. But like, I don't really, I'm trying to think of what they have on the horizon that could even be in that camp of like game of the generation style defining title. Of course, Elder Scrolls 6, but that's probably 2030 at the earliest. Outer Worlds 2 probably isn't going to do numbers like that. I don't think Fable is going to do numbers like that. That's Playground's first real pivot outside of Forza. So yeah, but I do think that they have some studios that are like, I think Machine Games got pretty damn close with Indiana Jones. Do I think Wolfenstein 3 will necessarily do that? But not really, but I think it'll be in that same range of high eights, and that's pretty fucking good. So yeah, they do need a Titan, they do need a big dog, but that's only if they're trying to sell consoles. Otherwise, it's like, just publish Call of Duty and don't shut down the other studios, please. The ninth entry here in the How to Fix Xbox proposal is fully commit to physical libraries, or fully commit to physical library preservation with an optional disk drive offered for all future Xbox devices. Yeah, I really want this. I would be kind of shocked if they didn't do this to some degree. Like, I would be kind of surprised if there was just no... I mean, what the fuck, dude? Just throw in a... of course it's going to come all digital. I think that that's probably the most likely scenario with the PS6 as well. Where it's like all digital, but you can go and buy a fucking disk drive and attach it to your... I don't think that that's... If that's not an option at all, like if you can't even have the possibility, if you can't even choose to buy physical media for Xbox, that would be crazy. You should at least have the option. It's just such little effort, So I'd be shocked if there was no option at all for it. And then the 10th entry here is overhaul the achievement system. Ultra achievement on 100%, separate achievements between base game and DLC, etc. I think that would be cool. I don't think that that's going to massively, I think that would just be something that's kind of like a tip of the cap. Like, cool, I'm glad you did that. I don't think that that would do anything to get people in the door to buy one of these things, but it would be cool for the people who are already using Xbox. So, yeah. These are 10 great possibilities, 10 great potential paths for Xbox to walk down for saving their next console, and then just the overall image of the Xbox console experience as a whole. But I guess the big question after that is like, is it worth saving? You know what I mean? Where I read all of that and I think about the place that Xbox is in right now, and I'm like, is that a console worth saving? Or should they get out the way and make room for somebody who really wants to be in this space? But does anybody really even want to be in this space? That's the thing, where I look at something like Stadia and I go, damn, man, y'all could have fucking... If Stadia was a console, and it, like, sure, do all your streaming shit as well and keep that in the background and keep developing for that, because we know that's the future. But if you can focus on the now and the future, like, I think Stadia could have been fucking sick, man. But they weren't invested in an actual home console. And I don't know if many others are either. Like, I don't know if Valve comes out with that Steam Machine 2 or whatever the hell they're going to call that thing, and if that does gangbusters, if that does really, really great numbers for Valve out the gate, then you do have to start considering, like, is there just no place for Xbox at all anymore? Because we've seen the shift to PC in general, where it was like, 40 million concurrent players on Steam the other day. And you got to keep in mind that, like, you'll see stats all the time where it's like, well, there's more PCs out there than there are core console, like PS5, Series X. There's more PCs out there than Series X and PS5s combined. And it's like, well, yeah, sure. But a lot of them are potatoes. A lot of them are that's why you see certain games on Steam, like small scale indie games, hitting crazy numbers of concurrent players. It's because it can run on fucking anything at all. And but like, I don't think that there might be as many high powered PCs out there as there are PS5s and Series X combined, which is great. But that also PlayStation 5 is doing just about as well as PS4 in terms of console sales. And so if we're seeing more and more PC players every day and they're upgrading to these higher powered rigs, then they had to have left somewhere to become a PC player, right? And it would just seem like they left Xbox. The Switch 2 is selling better than the Switch 1 early on. The PS5 is selling just as well as the PS4. But Xbox is seeing significant decline in terms of the overall console user base. So it's like I do worry about that, and I do wonder about that. Like, is there just not a market for Xbox anymore? And I mean, there's goddamn, I got a frog in my throat here. And I mean, there's all, the rumors of Xbox like getting pulled from store shelves, and I think a lot of that's horseshit. But I really, it's you don't really know what the fuck to believe at this point. And that's a big problem as well. I think a lot of the reporting around that of taking every single rumor and just running with it a mile long. I do think a lot of that is just it's fucking ridiculous in my opinion. There's nothing wrong with taking a rumor and like kind of examining it and having conversation around the rumor, but trying to report the rumor as fact is like it's crazy how often that happens in this industry. And I guess every industry. Like, I follow wrestling a little bit, and that happens a lot in wrestling, and it's just bad reporting. It's very bad reporting. But anywho, you see that stuff out there so much of Xbox is just not fucking selling, and but at the same time, I really want them to take one more crack at it. And I do think if they really make an effort with this, and I want to hear them say that as well. I want to hear them say that we are making first party hard. Like, I want to see it. I want to see it revealed. There's been so much kind of say one thing, do the other energy from Xbox in the last few years that, like, I don't even know if I'm going to believe that a next gen PC console hybrid thing is going to launch at all until I see it fully revealed. And people are like, well, they got the partnership already locked in with AMD. It's like, yeah, I hear you. And like, listen, I think that they are going to launch this thing. Like, if I had to pick one or the other, if you told me right now, gun to my head, make a prediction, are they going to launch next gen hardware, yes or no? I would select yes on that sheet, but at the same time, I wouldn't select yes with much confidence at all. So I want to see it revealed. And I want to see Xbox say, like, this is first party, this is an Xbox fucking console. And you can call it the Xbox Hybrid or call it whatever. Hybrid 1. I kind of fucking did Xbox Hybrid 1. And then that's like a full new line of consoles for you. You're the hybrid, and you kind of restart back over. Xbox Hybrid 1, and then the next one's the Xbox Hybrid 2. But then again, they have that whole thing where they didn't want to launch the PlayStation 2, or they didn't want to launch the Xbox 2 while PlayStation was launching the PlayStation 3 because it they felt like they'd be behind or whatever. But Xbox Hybrid 720, whatever the fuck you want to call it, I think there is some cool naming conventions there that you can go with that hybrid sort of moniker. But regardless, I want to see them get out in front and be like, yes, we are launching a first-party console, and we are doing what first-party console manufacturers do. We're eating the fucking... We're taking a hit. We're selling this at a loss. It is going to be a beast of a machine. We're going all fucking in. And if it doesn't work, like, obviously don't say this, but we'll kind of know, is like, if it doesn't work, then hey, that's on y'all. We launched this thing. We gave it our best effort. We made the most powerful console on the market, and we kept it affordable. We kept it at a reasonable price. We took a major hit on this thing. And, we were hoping to make it back by selling software, but y'all didn't buy it. Y'all didn't pick up the system, so we weren't able to make it back on selling software. So we just took a massive hit, and at some point Microsoft was like, fuck this, we're not doing it no more. And it's like, sure, at least go out with a fucking bang, not a whimper. That's like one of my biggest worries, is that they're just gonna go out with a fucking barely audible whimper. And it's like, dude, you were fucking Xbox. Like, you don't forget that shit. You were not, I don't want to, shit on anyone else, but you're not these other companies. You were the big dog for a lot of our childhood. Like, a lot of people remember Xbox as like the fucking system. And it just feels like such a like whimpering along to the finish line, and it feels like they're right there. It feels like they're on the precipice of doing something truly revolutionary, but you can't half-ass it like you've half-assed so much other shit in the past few years. Like, you gotta go for it, and try to get that shit into as many homes as possible. And $1,500 is not gonna get you into a lot of homes. It's just not. And I don't know what the rumored prices are. I need to but I don't know anybody. I don't think anybody really knows what the prices are until they're announced. Like, that's the thing. I want to see this. I want to get that full fucking announcement. I want to hear the full pricing, break down the specs. Here are the games. Here, like, I want to really see that official reveal. And it's so funny because I'm so not ready for next gen consoles, but I am so ready for their next gen console. I am ready to be sold on the next Xbox. I do not fucking want Xbox to go away. People who want Xbox to go away, it's just, and okay, here's the thing. Xbox can go fuck off, do whatever if someone else enters into the race as well. Like, if Stadia did somehow make a actual console and just kicked Xbox out, they just did better, and then they became the number 3. Sure. But you need that fucking, you need, because just being completely honest, the Switch 2 right now is great. Right now, third-party games, by and large, can run on the Switch 2 if they're optimized for it. But how long is that going to last? Another 2 years? Another 3 years? Do you think The Witcher 4 is going to run day one on the Switch 2? Because I don't. It might one day. It might be a similar situation where a few years after it releases, similar to how The Witcher 3 did. And then it's like, yeah, well, here's a version of The Witcher 4 on the Switch 2 that we've optimized for. But like, Cyberpunk 2 isn't going to run on the Switch 2. And the PS6 and the new Xbox are right around the corner. And then so there's a new benchmark for technology that people are striving for. And the Switch 2, just like the Switch 1, is going to get left behind, unfortunately. And it's like, you need another. If Xbox isn't going to be there, you don't want PlayStation uncontested. We saw PlayStation damn near uncontested this generation, and it was fucking abysmal. they felt confident enough that they could take some of their premier top dog studios and force them into live service games. And nothing was lost. Could you, dude, imagine the anemic support for the PlayStation 5. Imagine if that was PS3, even PS4 generation. You know, and if you had actual competition, you couldn't get away with shit like that. And I know a lot of people say, well, PlayStation's kind of like the Apple, the HBO now, whatever you want to call it, where it's just the de facto premier console. It's like, I don't think so, man. I think y'all way overstate the impact that PlayStation has had. And don't get me wrong, when they came out in 95 and totally upended the console video game space, the market, like, it was revolutionary with the just seeing games leave behind Nintendo to like your Final Fantasies and because of the CD form factor and what they were able to do with that technology opposed to the cartridges of the Nintendo 64. And like, it was definitely, the PlayStation 1 was a fucking a milestone, a changing of the tide that I'm not trying to diminish the impact that the PlayStation has had, but to say that it can't be, like, that it's just going to be the de facto number one console forevermore, like, I don't think that's the case. You know, I don't think it's necessarily like, if I do think Xbox could put something out there that would be competitive in the market again. You know, and I remember Phil Spencer did that kind of funny interview where he, once again, just sort of whimpered on there and was like, I don't know if we're ever gonna. It was just this defeatist energy where it's like, I think you can get back into, living rooms nationwide at the very least. Like, I don't know worldwide. Xbox was never really a worldwide mass seller but in North America, the Xbox was the fucking console for the 360 generation. And maybe it doesn't ever reach those highs again, but I do think there's still some juice left in there. And I just say, go out with a fucking bang, man. Because I don't want to be in a world where it's just PlayStation and Nintendo. You're talking about the level of anti-consumer tactics that will be deployed, and nobody will be able to there will be nothing in the market to counter it. There will be nowhere else to go. Like, I unless, once again, the Steam Machine 2 comes and takes off, and then sure, at that point, I guess Xbox get out and make room for Steam Machine 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I get it, but I don't know. I hope they put their best foot forward with this next system when it's time to launch. So, yeah, that's my great question there, though. And I guess in terms of the overall message here, the overall proposition for the 10 solutions, I agree with the vast majority of them. And I do still think there's some juice left in that squeeze. So here's hoping for what, 2027, I guess, is the rumor now. Like, I cannot wait, because if that's the case, then we're going to see this thing next year. We're going to see this thing in 2026. And I cannot fucking wait to just see it. I want to see it officially revealed. Yeah. So anywho, appreciate the question, Dan. And next up, we have a question from Justin Parkhouse, who writes in and says, is there a game that is considered to be really bad, but is your secret guilty pleasure? The first one that comes to mind for me, I wouldn't say necessarily guilty pleasure, but I like Mass Effect Andromeda a lot. I think Mass Effect Andromeda, like, in terms of the gameplay experience that's on offer here, Mass Effect Andromeda just plays really fucking well. It is definitely, without a shadow of a doubt, the best third-person shooter in the Mass Effect franchise. It feels so good to control. and then just move around, and the like it is a very, very fucking once again, I played it after it had been patched, and so I wasn't there day one supporting this. I saw the reviews and I was like, I don't want to feel that hurt. I don't want to jump into this thing and, play a bastardized version of Mass Effect. But going back to it years later, I was very, very impressed. I was like, this is a story wise, it's not on par with Mass Effect 1 and 2, but it's got some really great side content in there, and I just think that from a moment to moment gameplay standpoint, it's a very solid video game. But I mean, I have a lot of these. People hate Resident Evil 6. I enjoy RE6 a great deal. People hate even like Def Jam Icon. Certainly there are things about Def Jam Icon that I think kind of killed the franchise, but at the same time, I thought some of that weird technology that they were working with in that game was somewhat interesting, like the mixing the fucking beat to the it was really fucking odd, man. Doing the little mixing as the finishing move or whatever the hell you wanted to call it. And I just thought it had like some cool sort of visual language. It was in that very gray and brown, and it was drab in that 360 era, but it did something distinct with it visually that I don't know, that game was a little bit better than people gave it credit. But there's a lot, man. There's a lot. Alpha Protocol is definitely another one that comes to mind where to me, Alpha Protocol is like, sure, no doubt, it's janky, it's buggy, and from a gameplay standpoint, it's not that great. But I for real think Alpha Protocol is one of the best like choice-based RPGs on the 7th generation of consoles. It is so damn rewarding for just how varied the story missions are and how much your choice actually matters in that world. It's super fucking impressive. But I could go on and on with this. Like the Sopranos game on the PS2, I find some level of guilty pleasure in that. The Jaws Unleashed, the third person Jaws game on the PS2 was absolutely fucking ridiculous, and I somehow kind of like that. Ghost Rider in that similar vein. X-Men Destiny. A lot of these licensed titles are very much Wolverine on the PS2. A lot of those licensed titles are very much in that wheelhouse of what I would consider guilty pleasure. Jedi Power Battles for sure would be in there. Some of those Star Wars games in general, Bounty Hunter, it's just I think there were a lot of guilty pleasures back then because there were so many bad games that were releasing constantly as like licensed cash grabs. But at the same time, when you're a kid and you're sitting there playing fucking Pimp My Ride, that's what you have to play, so you just play it. And you're aware that it's bad, and Pimp My Ride wouldn't be in this camp of like fucking guilty pleasures because it's not a pleasurable experience. But you're aware that these games that you're playing are not good, certainly. But at the same time, it's what you had to play, so you just played it. And I'm sure if I went back to a lot of these titles years later, that I would be like, oh my god, this is absolutely horrific. But my memories of a lot of these games are fairly positive. So yeah, those would be my guilty pleasure games, and I appreciate you for writing in, Justin. But I think, if I'm not mistaken, those are the only questions this week. Go through and check one more time before we... Yep, so those are the questions this week. And once again, if y'all want to write in, just head on over to Patreon or the YouTube membership side of things and support at that. I think it's the $5 tier. It's the Q&A tier. It's weird because the tiering structure is different on Patreon versus YouTube for whatever reason. So I think YouTube is like $7, Patreon's $5. But however, whichever way you want to support, feel free to do so. I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. And yeah, so that is available there for you to write in each and every single week. And I thank you all so much for writing in each and every single week. All right, so how about we dive into some By Sweet Carole, a indie game that I just finished. We'll review this bad boy real quick, and then I will hop out of yous hair. So, for those of you who might not be aware, By Sweet Carole is a narrative-driven, like 2D kind of, not Metroidvania or anything like that, more just like a 2D narrative adventure game. And it leans into a little bit of horror elements in there. It's all hand-drawn in this classic sort of Disney 1920s era animation, and it is absolutely fucking gorgeous, which you can tell just by looking at it. But for kind of a quick gut check overview to start off the review with the gut check, we've talked about, to me, gut check is a stat that just kind of expresses, did you personally enjoy the game or not? Before we go into it and break down what I did not enjoy about it, gut check is just like an overall sort of read on the game overall. And for me, By Sweet Carole is one of the toughest gut checks that I've ever encountered when trying to review a game, when trying to present a game to you all, to discuss a game with you all. Like, I really don't know if I enjoyed this thing or not. It was a very complicated ass experience, and we'll get into that, but I do not like playing this game whatsoever the majority of the time, but I absolutely adore it artistically, visually, narratively. Like, there are so many things about this game that I think are mesmerizing in just a presentation sense, but as a video game, I kind of don't really like it at all. So it's like the tough thing of weighing, do I like what I like more than I hate what I hate? And like, how do you put a number on that for the gut check? I think for me, for overall gut check on this thing, I'm going to say a 6 out of 10. And we'll get into it and break it down bit by bit here in a second, but 6 out of 10 to me is like passable, right? There are things about this experience that I love, so I'm not going to, I'm not going to let the thing I hate so much hold me back from loving the things that I love. So I think a 6 out of 10 accurately kind of reflects that, hopefully. So let's get into this and actually, break down the core gameplay experiences. That's my number one frustration with this game overall. And I want to start out by saying that I think a lot of my main frustrations with By Sweet Carole are things that will be patched, or could hopefully be patched later on. It's definitely a lot of bug related issues, a lot of just very glitchy animation, and a lot of like one of my main criticisms with this game is that it just, even just that simple act right there of like dropping down onto a ledge. I can't tell you how many times that dropping down onto a ledge as you're climbing and it says to just press X, and you press X and you fall to your death, or you fall down, whatever the case may be, and have to go back and reclimb just for the animation to properly sync up and for you to the button prompt that you're pressing to actually do the thing that it's supposed to do. It's just very, very janky. It's not broken. I don't think the game crashed on me once. It's not like some horrible fucking technical performance. None of that stuff is the issue. It's just doing a lot. There are a lot of very small mechanics in here that I think that this is a game that would have benefited from a lot of edits, a lot of stuff being left on the cutting room floor, because I appreciate that they're trying to blend a little bit of, your survival horror elements with, okay, I need to go find this key, I need to go find this item, and then I'm going to backtrack around, and you're combining a little bit of that. Some of that's Metroidvania related as well, but you're combining those elements and also trying to present a very distinct narrative structure here, and you're trying to tell a story that is really, really good, but a lot of the jank just undermines how good the other elements of this story are. And I think that when you play something like a Little Nightmares, and when you play something like an Inside or a Limbo, and it so precisely focuses on one thing of, really trying to hone in on the just precision platforming, or on the atmosphere, ambiance, the very, very simple, basic kind of puzzle solving elements. Like, nobody would play those games and think that these games are mechanically complex. Or at least they're not doing a lot. Like, there's very little going on in those games from an interactive sense. Like, you get what the game is immediately, and you do that one thing for 2, 3, 4 hours until the game is over, and it's rewarding because it just feels good to do it the entire time. Like, there's such little jank because there's such little room for error in those games, and this is like, it's trying to do some of that as well. It's trying to do a little bit of the platforming as well. It's trying to do a little bit of the emphasis and focus on puzzle solving, but also combining it with a little bit of combat, a couple boss encounters that are never really all that great. It's throwing a lot at the wall, and like 40% of it sticks. Because when it gets into just being like a 2D narrative adventure game, there's even a part of it where it's a little bit more point and click adventure related towards the back end of the game. And when there's very little going on in the way of puzzle solving, other than like, there's a section of the game towards the end where it's a lot more like deduction based puzzle solving, where it actually leans into the narrative opposed to leaning into like platforming based puzzle solving, or opposed to it's going backtracking around to find this key and then hiding from this monster. Oh, here's this stalker enemy, and now I'm gonna go into this corner to hide from the monster, but the game kind of freaks out if you... There's just all of these mechanical inconsistencies that make it a bit annoying to play. And I think that unfortunately the game is at its best when there's very little to play, in terms of like when it slows the fuck down, calms down, and just presents you with like kind of a little bit of a point and click adventure game. It's like, that's when it's the best game. Towards the end of this thing, it is very, very strong, where it's like, okay, I'm in this, ballroom sort of like this event, and I need to figure out, based on sort of my own deduction of like how to get to this certain person, or how to get to this room that's blocked off, but I'm doing it through like these social interactions and trying to manipulate my way through it. And it's actually one of the more complex puzzles that the entire game presents to you. Like, nothing about the game is overly complex in terms of like, it's very simple, point A to point B, getting shit done. There's just a level of it's a level of jank in doing so in a lot of these different instances that makes it frustrating, makes it feel tedious. Whereas like that back end of the game is really, really fucking strong, because it's not trying to do too much, and what it is doing, it's doing really, really well. And I will say, like, to me, I think with the stalker enemy design, I think that area specifically it could have been so fucking cool if it was just because there are certain scenarios in the game where the stalker is less like, it's less about chasing you around this very confined, very small area and forcing you to go into a room and hold your breath and then popping back out. And then it's like, oh, well, this stalker is just circling around this one little spot that I need to go to. So I'm just going to sit here for 2 minutes and watch as the game kind of glitches the fuck out. And the stalker is stuck doing the same kind of animation as he's like clipping in this up this stair, and he won't move, and as soon as I go there the spotlight hits me and he runs towards me, and it's like there's these little annoyances there. But then there are moments where you're being chased and it's just like a straight up chase scene, and once again it's much more streamlined, much more kind of leaning into what I think this game does best, presenting you a story with god tier presentation, god tier visuals, god tier animation. And then those moments are really strong. So like having that kind of stalker style design, I think could have been implemented much, much better if it was just used much less frequently. So yeah, to put a score on the gameplay, man, I know this is going to sound harsh. I think it's... Listen, if 6 out of 10 is passable, I don't think the gameplay is passable. I'm going to throw a 4 out of 10 on the gameplay. It's just so fucking janky. It's barely not broken, which I don't think that is passable. Like, it functions, and that's kind of as much as I can say for the game. It's more ambitious than it needs to be, and ambition, that's not inherently a good thing. Less ambition and more polish would have very much benefited this title. But yeah, I'm going to throw a 4 out of 10 to gameplay. It was not a fun experience finishing this thing. All right, so after all of the ranting there, which was very negative leaning, I can understand people being like, well, why the hell did you finish this game? Why did you power through it? And let's talk about the story, because that is a big reason why I powered through this game. This is a very, very good story. Like, they tell a really strong story here, and it's not just it's a really well presented game. Like, there's a lot of fucking cutscenes in this. This is probably some of the most fully animated cutscenes I've ever seen in an indie game ever. It's really, really fucking impressive, man. I mean, the end of this game, you get I don't want to say a 20-minute Kojima style cutscene, but it's a little, 5-10 minute short animated movie. More so than a cutscene. It's fucking impressive, man. Towards the end of this game, you really get a significant payoff. And I just think the story throughout it was propelling me forward. I wanted to see what was going to happen. I liked the themes that they were touching on. I liked the weird sort of, questioning, is this a dream state? Is this all actually happening in the same universe? What the fuck is going on here? It was so weird. It was such a bizarre experience that I wanted to see it through. And from moment one, from the opening of this game, I was just constantly curious about the next thing that was going to happen. And I think the themes that it hits on here, it's not just obviously you see the 1920s kind of presentation here with the animation style, the 1920s Disney animated sort of visual language, but there's also very much that identity carrying through in the, it feels 1920s in the themes that it's touching on here as well. The women's emancipation and a lot of just women's rights issues being discussed as you're in class and being taught, to be very submissive. And these are things that are being, you're being taught this in school of a way to act as a woman, and then like in this era of you're starting to see protests against that. You're starting to see a little bit of like the revolting begin for that kind of train of thought, and a lot of the story is rooted around that, but it's also the themes of bullying as well that are associated with that, where certain people don't necessarily fit in. And what I really like the most about the story in regards to the bullying is that you so often in games get the sort of savior complex where the main character is always going to save the other characters who are being bullied. And I think it's such a great depiction of high school, because your main character oftentimes, I'm not saying she goes along with the bullying and participates. I should say she more goes along with the bullying than participates, but she sees it, and there's certain times where she's like, I can't add your stress to my life, regarding a character that's getting bullied in the game. And she's like, I already have enough going on. And it's like, that is actually very fucking relatable. I think a large majority of people in the world have been in an encounter similar to that, where it's like, I'm not going to interject here. I already got my own shit going on. And it's like, you feel like shit afterwards. And you as the player feel like shit in those scenarios in this game. And you're like, motherfucker, man, I hate that just took place like that. But you're also more invested because it's uncommon. You so frequently play as a as a kind of the savior style of character, that just having that slight twist, it really added a lot to the, I guess, relatability of the overall story. And yeah, you see there where it says "to my mom" on the screen, where this is a Chris Darrell, the creative director for Remothered. This is his, like, I believe he started up this studio. I believe the Little Sewing Machine, I think, is the name of the studio. And this is a game that he dedicated to his mom. And once again, kind of going back to the themes there, just with women's rights and even into the bullying and all that. Like, you feel that this is a game that is really coming from someone's soul. Like, this is a game that this story feels like it was written by someone who was really passionate about writing it. And I'm not sure I've ever played a game that I could feel, like I feel that it means so much to the creator. And oh shit. Like, this is definitely, it feels like it's wearing your art on your sleeve, if you will. Which kind of makes it all that much more unfortunate that the gameplay is so mediocre, so bland. But yeah, the best moments of this game are what you're seeing right now. These badass animated cutscenes, and any of the moments that are more leaning into the narrative or just are more kind of adventure game adjacent, more so than horror game adjacent, more so than platform game adjacent. Whatever. When it's not being much of a video game is when this video game is at its best. So that's not necessarily a ringing endorsement, but the story is really, really fucking good. And I don't want to get into it too much to spoil it, but it's like, I didn't see twists coming, and there were things later on at the end of the game where I'm like, oh wow, I could not have predicted that. So let's go ahead and put a score on the story for By Sweet Carole. Man, I think I would give this story like an 8 out of 10. It's really, really, really fucking strong. I wouldn't put it in the pantheon of like all-time great stories or anything like that, but it is you're going to be compelled. I guess I shouldn't say you and I was compelled the entire time going through this game. I strongly, strongly recommend the narrative of this. And That unfortunately, I think I would more so mean, hey, go watch the cutscenes on YouTube. I think you might get more out of that. And listen, I shouldn't say that. It's a game worth supporting because it is legit art. Like, this is a work of art in terms of the animation quality, the presentation, the storytelling. It's just so unfortunate that I have to, you know, it's unfortunate that I can't recommend this wholeheartedly because at the end of the day, it is a video game. And it feels like this video game would have benefited so much from not being a video game, unfortunately. But yeah, great story. But now let's talk a little bit about the tech, the art of this title. And yeah, this is the area where the game really fucking sings. This is like one of those games that start off as a 10 out of 10 from the moment you see it from a tech and art standpoint, and it would actively have to like work its way down opposed to working its way up. It is just striking. From the moment you look at this thing to the moment you put it down, you are in awe with what you're looking at. It's not one of those games that, you know, you get used to it. You're constantly impressed by what you're seeing on the screen from an animation level. And I was looking up, like, how in the fuck did this studio, how did they make this? How is it possible to have a game with animation on this level? Because it's like all the way down to the actual moment to moment gameplay. You know, it all, like, as you're seeing on the screen, it just fucking looks like a 1920s Disney movie. It's not just the cutscenes. And I found out that they had a really interesting design philosophy with this game, where they built the game using a 2D film style production pipeline where every single animation is hand drawn frame by frame, and then they exported those animation as sprite sheets and composed it in engine, opposed to being rendered in real time from 3D models. So it's like not to say, listen, they wanted to make a video game, they made a video game, but it seems like the core design, the core philosophy behind this was to bring a 1920s Disney animated film to life in game form that you could actually engage with, that you could have real, you know, active fucking agency in a 1920s Disney animated film, which is unbelievably impressive from a tech standpoint. And they're based in Italy, which is well known for having like extremely high quality, like top tier prestigious art schools. So I'm assuming they just hired some fucking god tier classically trained artist. And then Chris Darrow, the creator, once again the founder of the studio, I believe, I think he was if I'm not mistaken, I think that he is a trained illustrator as well. So that's the entire identity of that game comes from that. And so yeah, they I think they perfect everything when it comes to art style, art direction, music. Like, it's all absolutely impeccable from a tech and art standpoint. It's you could probably make a little bit of a knock against them technically with this game, just in terms of the lack of polish from a gameplay standpoint, but I think I already kind of criticized them for that when discussing the gameplay. But we'll knock it back a little bit, just for it is a little bit janky. You know what I mean? It is a little bit janky, and I'm not talking, once again, I'm not talking from the standpoint of the game. It did get stuck on a loading screen at one point, so I guess you could consider that a crash. But other than that, like, I didn't have any game-breaking bugs or anything like that whatsoever. It's not flawless from a technical side of things, so we'll knock it a little bit for that. But it is, I would say, without a shadow of a doubt, the tech and the art are the shining, like, number one fucking key star for this title. So let's go ahead and score that as well. And I think the only reasonable score we could give that would be a 9 out of 10. Gotta knock it a little bit just for the level of jank on offer, but yeah, 9 out of 10. I easily am comfortable with that score. But now we got to add it all up, calculate the results, and present the final score for By Sweet Carole. So gut check, we got a 6 out of 10. Gameplay, we got a 4 out of 10. Story, we got an 8 out of 10. Tech and art, we have a 9 out of 10. We add all of that up, and we get a 27, and then you divide that by 4. So dividing by, for anybody who hasn't been around for the reviews, dividing by all of the different metrics here. So gut check, gameplay, story, tech and art, those are the 4 key areas. Divide by those 4, and then we get our overall score, which comes out to a 6.75, which I think is totally fair for this game. It is a game I struggle to recommend to anybody who is wanting to go in and get some excellent gameplay experience. You're not going to get that here. But you are going to get an excellent experience in these other areas, in the storytelling, in the just art direction. But yeah, I would struggle to recommend this in terms of anybody who's looking to get like a precise platforming 2D, side scroll. It's not that. And I think the weakest parts of the game are the gameplay, but overall, there is something still very, very, very special with this title. So shout out to By Sweet Carole. And I've also been playing Sly Cooper 2. But we will talk about Sly Cooper 2 next week once I have finished it. I think maybe like 5 hours into it or so at this point. So hopefully I'll have that finished next week. And yeah, man, that is pretty much the show. Like I said, want to keep these to about an hour and 30 minutes. We're sitting at an hour and 35 right now, in that range. So appreciate y'all for sparing me your time, sitting with me, rambling with me as we discuss the old video games. I hope y'all enjoyed. And yeah, I talked about it. I put out that poll. Let me pop that up real quick. Let's see what the results are looking like for that. Okay. So yeah, I put up this post on YouTube and I said, how do you guys prefer to consume gaming news videos on YouTube? And more specifically, which of these two choices would you prefer to see from the channel? And I put daily 10 to 20 minute long videos, or a once a week long, a once a week long form podcast. Can't fucking speak. And the results are 69% of people wanted a daily 10 to 20 minute long video, and 30% of people wanted a once a week long form podcast. I should have specified in this post, and I want to clear that up with you guys out the gate. The Ramble Report this is not going away at all. This will be locked in every Friday. I will be doing this show without a doubt. I'm trying to figure out when I put up this poll, and once again, I should have specified this in that post, but when I put up this poll, I was trying to figure out how to do the news, because as you're seeing here, I don't have the news incorporated into this show. And I'm trying to figure out did people want a once a week long form podcast alongside the Ramble Report? Or did people want, instead of a once a week long form news podcast and the Ramble Report, did they want, a 10 to 20 minute video posted, I shouldn't say daily, but as frequently as possible? And so I think that's what I will do. I posted that fucking, what was it, the James Lindsay dude or whatever, when he had that viral tweet talking about games are for kids, and I just posted a 20-minute rant about that, and it did pretty well on the channel. And so and I also had comments in this post where people were like, yeah, the 20-minute videos, they get recommended to me more than the long form stuff, through the algorithm. So I think that probably will be the plan going forward, where once again, this show will remain. No worries about that at all. But I think around this show, I'm going to try to drop some 10 to 20 minute long videos regarding the world of video game news, picking individual topics. And I also just stuff like that, just random topics that hit my brain, and just kind of pop them out there quickly to you all. And yeah, try to get out as much shit as humanly possible for the channel to continue growing. So hope that sounds good to all of you, but I just wanted to be very clear with that this show is not going away. No worries about that whatsoever. This will be a mainstay in your Friday rotation if you enjoy the show, and if y'all continue to support the show. Numbers are doing just fine with it. I love doing a nice long form show at the end of every week, and so yeah, I love doing this shit. So no worries about this going away, but I'm trying to figure out what to add around it. So I think that will be the plan. Just some short form pieces of content to sprinkle on the top of the Ramble Report cake, whatever the fuck I'm saying. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. Hope y'all have a good weekend, man, and we will be back here next week to review some Sly Cooper 2 and to talk about whatever the hell else is going on in the world of the video games. So what is coming out next week? Is there any... Let's see. Oh yeah, next week. So next week I think is Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. So I'll be diving into that as well. Checking that out. I definitely won't have it finished by next week, but we'll talk about it. Yeah. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. Hope y'all have a good weekend, and hit me in the comments with your thoughts on the whole Xbox talk, the Buy Sweet Carole. If you've been playing some Buy Sweet Carole, let me know your guilty pleasure games, all of that stuff in the comments below, and I shall see you in the next video. Take it easy, guys. Goodbye.